Good morning and welcome to Master Debatin', where we discuss the most pressing issues and long-debated topics in pop culture. Today's debate regards who claims the title as the most irritating sitcom character. We have superfan Kate Torriello and Darlie Justice, superfan of How I Met Your Mother, to debate who is more annoying, Ross Geller or Ted Mosby. So, we'll start with Darlie. What is your main reason for why Ted Mosby is irritating?
Well, Ted is he's just so clingy and just extremely insecure, you know, which, I mean, insecurity, I think we all have like some level of some form of insecurity, but like
Right.
his, like he needs to get checked out. Like he needs to see a therapist, like something. Rather than just like talking to his kids, you know, trying to boost his ego about the women he's dated in the past, you know, like he's this wise father. Like, no, don't give me that. Don't give me
Okay.
that, Ted.
Well, I think we can also argue that Ross is pretty insecure. Would you say so, Kate?
Yeah, no, he's been just as insecure. I mean, he only talks about his failed marriages. And he has this son who, in like the early episodes, he wanted to play with a Barbie doll. And he was so against it. Like, he kept wanting him to play with a G.I. Joe. Like, why?
Well, okay, so that's part of their personalities. They're both pretty insecure, but what do you think about their personality makes them most annoying? Like what is that one personality trait that is like, I can't stand this person? What would you say about Ross, Kate?
I think for Ross, it's more of just him always talking about how he's a doctor. I feel like when you have a PhD, that's awesome, but like you don't need to put doctor in front of your name all the time if you're not an actual like person doctor, you know?
Right.
I don't get it. Why?
Well, I also agree that Ted also shoves his profession in his friend's face. Would you say so as well?
Oh,
Really?
absolutely. I think so. But I feel like the main thing with the way that you can really measure someone's annoyance, you know, or is how they interact with others, right? You mentioned how Ross, like, you know, had like a weird like thing with like a toy or whatever, but I think that with Ted, it's his relationships that really help bring out that flawed nature that he has, you know.
I feel like for Ross, though, I mean, the relationship he had with Rachel, like, he went to her actual work and, like, was so worried that she was sleeping with her coworker, which, like, come on, man.
But, like, compare that to how many girls has, like, Ted been with. Like, I'm not gonna say I'm an absolute, like, expert, like, on the show. It's probably taboo for me to even say this, but like this is just for me to make this point. But like I know that every single time I sat in front of that television and I watched that show, Ted was with like a different girl like every week, and it wasn't necessarily even because like at least be like a player about it, like own up to it. Nah, like it was because like he was like so just broken.
I guess, but I mean, Ross kept saying like they were on a break, which they weren't on the break, by the way. They weren't. But he kept saying we were on a break, and he went off like an hour later and slept with some other woman. Like, why? How could you do that to another person?
Right.
Why?
But I think that Ted's level of an ability for emotional manipulation is just far more advanced. Like, even when it comes to his close friends, you know, people he's been with for...
Well, let's just take a closer look at that. You say that he's very manipulative, and he's had a different girl every single episode that you've watched, basically. What would you say about him in relationships? I mean, he's got a really long track record of girls, and
He does.
What do you think what is his most main point in all these relationships? Like,
I think, you know, I think what he tries to do or makes an attempt to do, and I've studied his character like very closely, because I do think that even though his personality is not the best, I think that his character, you know, looking at it from an audience's point of view, is very real and very rugged and, you know, very raw, like, and that is what makes it a good character, because we're not looking for anybody perfect. But some examples that I can give you is, let's take his whole thing with Victoria. He convinces her to run from the altar at her own wedding.
right.
Like, you know, that's just unacceptable behavior. You know, it's not adult. Like, he can be very high school, you know, and even like underclassmen college, you know, on some
I
levels.
feel like you
And
could
I'm sure a
argue,
lot of
though,
us
that Ross was just as, you know, human or a good character as anybody else, because he always, he he constantly was correcting people's grammar, like all the time. And I know so many people like that. So I feel like
We can also say that Ted also corrected people a
Yeah,
lot, am I
Ted.
right?
Ted was the guy, and we might all have this guy in our friend group or a girl who just wants to pronounce things the right way, whether it's to sound smarter or like whatever the case may be. But it's like, and they like to use big words too. Like I'm not saying that's the case for Ted, but you know, just that kind of they bring that kind of element to the table in the friend group. And I had a friend like that in the past where, and I didn't really judge him for it, but he was just always using big words, but it was never to seem like smarter, like, cause like I knew the words he was saying and I understood like what they meant in the context that we were, you know, talking about. But like I feel like with Ted, it's just like overboard. Like he just like tries to say, like, it's just unnecessary. It's
So this is a really annoying trait in any friend, am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what
insecurity.
exactly? What other trait in their like they haven't been very good friends all of the time, am I right? So what's the best example you can come up with that where they weren't like the best friend ever?
I think for Ross, I would say, so Phoebe, one of his friends, found this cat, and she was like, my mom is in this cat. And then he was like, you know what, Phoebe? Your mom isn't in that cat, that's such an asshole move.
What about you?
Are you asking about his relationship with Russ in particular?
No.
Oh, just okay, just like in general. Well, I mean, I'd say that. Well.
All right. Well, sorry, Lenny. Sorry, Darlie, but we ran out of time, and that is all the time we have for today's debate. Unfortunately, we have not come to a consensus, but you can help us out by voting on our Twitter poll. Thank you to Kate and Darlie for joining us on today's debate. Next on Master Debating, we'll debate the 21-year-old question about the Titanic. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.